It hits you in the shower, on the drive to work, right as you're falling asleep. A memory so sharp and so sudden, it makes you flinch. Something you said 10 years ago, something you did in front of people, something so small the other person almost certainly forgot it before they even got home. But your brain kept it, filed it, polished it, and now it plays it back at full volume whenever it wants. You didn't ask for this, but your brain has a very good reason for doing it. And that reason is far older and far stranger than you think. Let's start with what's actually happening when that memory fires. Your brain has a structure called the amygdala. Two of them actually, one on each side, deep in the temporal lobe, about the size and shape of an almond. The amygdala's job is threat detection. It is fast, automatic, and it does not consult your rational mind before it acts. When something happens that triggers social threat, humiliation, rejection, public failure, the amygdala flags it immediately. And it sends a signal to your hippocampus, the brain's memory consolidation center, that says, record this, record all of it, every detail, every face in the room, the exact words, the silence afterward, the heat in your face. Record it permanently. This is called emotional memory consolidation. And neuroscientist Joseph LeDoux, whose work at New York University mapped the amygdala's role in fear and emotional memory more precisely than anyone before him, described it this way. Emotionally arousing events are remembered better than non-arousing ones because the amygdala modulates the storage of memory in proportion to the emotional significance of the experience. In plain English, the more something threatens you emotionally, the deeper it gets burned in. Now here is where it gets interesting. Why social threat specifically? Why does tripping in front of strangers get stored differently to tripping alone? Why does saying the wrong thing in a meeting replay for years when forgetting your keys replays for minutes? Because for the vast majority of human history, social rejection was not embarrassing. It was fatal. Your ancestor did not live alone. They lived in a group of between 50 and 150 people. That group was everything. It was food, protection, warmth, reproduction, survival. Being cast out of the group, being rejected, shamed, publicly humiliated in a way that damaged your standing was a death sentence in practical terms. You could not survive the savannah alone. You could not hunt alone. You could not sleep safely alone. Social standing wasn't a nice thing to have. It was oxygen. So your brain evolved to treat social threat with the same seriousness it treated physical threat. The same amygdala that fires when a predator appears fires when you say something stupid in front of people. The same stress hormones flood your system. The same memory consolidation kicks in. Because in the world your brain was built for, both were equally dangerous. Psychologist Mark Leary at Duke University spent decades studying what he called the sociometer, the brain's internal system for monitoring social acceptance and rejection. His research showed that self-esteem, the thing we think of as an internal personal feeling about ourselves, is actually an outward-facing social monitoring tool. It rises when you're accepted and falls when you're rejected. It is not about how you feel about yourself in isolation. It is a real-time tracker of your standing in the group. And when that standing drops, when embarrassment happens, the alarm system doesn't just go off. It records the event in high definition so you never make that mistake again. This is the key. Your brain is not torturing you. It is running a protection protocol. The embarrassing memory doesn't replay because your brain is cruel. It replays because your brain classified that event as a near miss. You got close to social death. You survived, but the system wants you to study what happened so you can avoid it next time. Every replay is a training session your brain scheduled without asking you. Think about what that memory actually does when it surfaces. You flinch, your body tightens, you feel the heat again. That physical response is your nervous system rehearsing the avoidance. It is practicing not doing the thing that put you in that position. In the ancestral environment, that was useful. Someone who deeply remembered and physically felt the social humiliation of a public mistake was less likely to repeat it. They were more careful, more attuned to social dynamics, more likely to stay in the group's good graces, more likely to survive. You are descended from the ones who flinched, the ones who replayed, the ones who couldn't let it go. Researcher Tiffany Ito at the University of Colorado ran studies showing that negative social events produce stronger and more durable memories than positive ones across virtually every demographic tested. The ratio is stark. A single moment of public humiliation can generate memories that persist and intrude for decades. An equivalent moment of public praise fades within weeks. Your brain does not treat these symmetrically because survival never required you to remember praise. It required you to remember danger. An embarrassment to the ancient brain is danger wearing a human face. This asymmetry has a name, negativity bias, and it runs through almost every system in your brain. You notice threats faster than rewards. You remember insults longer than compliments. You replay failures more vividly than successes. None of this is accidental. All of it was selected for because the cost of missing a threat was always higher than the cost of missing an opportunity. You could miss a berry bush and survive. You could not miss a predator. You could forget a compliment and survive. You could not forget the moment that nearly got you expelled from the only group keeping you alive. Here is the cruelest part. The memory does not update. Long-term potentiation, the neurological process by which emotionally significant memories get reinforced with each retrieval, means that every time that embarrassing memory surfaces and you feel the flinch, the memory gets slightly stronger, not weaker. The very act of remembering it consolidates it further. You are not processing it out of your system. You are filing a stronger copy. This is why telling someone to just get over it fundamentally misunderstands what is happening. The system was not built to let go. It was built to hold on tightly, permanently, because in the world it was designed for, letting go of a social near miss could mean repeating it, and repeating it could mean losing everything. So what do you do with this? The research points in one direction, not suppression. Suppression strengthens the memory, not avoidance. Avoidance confirms the threat. The most effective intervention, supported by work from psychologist Ethan Kross at the University of Michigan, is something called self-distancing. Instead of reliving the memory from inside it, feeling the heat, hearing the silence, you observe it from outside. You use your own name. You ask, what would you tell a friend who had this happen to them? That shift in perspective deactivates the amygdala's threat response just enough to allow the prefrontal cortex to do what it was built for, to contextualize, to rationalize, to gently, slowly update the file. The memory doesn't disappear. It never disappears. But the threat signal attached to it, the flinch, the heat, the replay, can be turned down. Not because the ancient system was wrong, but because you now understand what it was actually trying to do. It was trying to keep you in the group. It was trying to keep you alive. And in the world it was built for, it was doing exactly the right thing. Tonight, when that memory surfaces again without warning, you'll know what's happening. Your ancient brain is running a protection program so old it predates language. It is showing you a near miss and asking you to study it. You don't have to comply, but now at least you understand why it won't stop asking. Tonight, when that memory surfaces, you'll remember this, not with shame, with understanding. You're not a person who can't let things go. You're a 2 million-year-old survival machine running a protection protocol older than language itself. Every replay is a training session. Every flinch is a rehearsal. Your brain isn't punishing you. It's doing the only thing it ever learned to do, keep you in the group, keep you alive. It just doesn't know the world changed. Now you do. So next time it surfaces, you'll know what's actually asking. And now you've got something to say back. If this hits something for you, drop a comment. When does your brain ambush you the most? We read every one. Like if it shifted something, subscribe. See you in the next video.